Hi, everyone. This is Charna, host of the LaidOPEN Podcast. Welcome back. I am so happy to have you here with me. And I'm full of smiles because I really enjoyed my conversation with my guest today, Colette Baron-Reid. She's an internationally respected author, artist, educator, spiritual intuitive, medium, and an oracle expert. And she was here with me today to discuss the art of manifesting, a meditative drawing practice to rewire your brain and create your reality. And we didn't get into too much of the detailed chapter by chapter content of her book. She has very clearly laid out 7 steps to doing this practice, but there's so much good nerd alert information, scientific research to support how drawing actually really benefits our health, helps rewire the brain. And she goes into manifesting in a much deeper way than if you've been around for a while and know about The Secret and how popular that was back in the 90s. So she is so full of life and vibrancy, and may we all live aligned, vibrant lives well into our 70s, 80s, and 90s. I hope you enjoy this conversation and get her book. It's full of really good practices. Even if you don't do exactly the 7-week committed daily practice process, there are so many good practices in her book. So welcome, Colette. So good to have you here. So glad to have you here. Welcome, Colette.
Learn how to live embodied. Your life is about to unwind. Uncover new tools and start healing. Leave trauma and tension behind. Isn't it great, laid open? Let all your desires come true. How can you live laid open? Imagine yourself brand new. Imagine yourself brand new.
Oh, thank you so much, Charna. I'm thrilled to be here. I really am.
I really appreciated your book. I think it's a great entryway into manifesting, and there's just so much good information about quantum physics as well that's digestible for people. And it was also, I love all the nerd facts, the nerd alerts throughout the book, which for everybody listening, it goes into more of the brain science and other kinds of science.
I've been in this particular field of intuitive development and personal transformation and very woo-woo stuff too for 36 years, right? So I'm a medium. I create, oracle cards. I have 19 decks out, etc. So I'm most known for that. But manifesting and deliberate reality creation has been an obsession of mine since I began, because I always was fascinated with how our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs engaged with the outer world. Like, how is it that what we broadcast responds back to us? And so I really needed this not to be another woo-woo book. It wasn't just about divine law, etc. I couldn't do a book like that. I am a nerd. I am a total science nerd. And the woman that I brought on board to work with me on the book, Anna Denning, I had joined her fabulous art community. She teaches different types of neuro arts. She has a neuro art school. We made friends, and she also was a total nerd, right? So we were like, we need this to have gravitas, and we need to get the research done and have the citations there so that we know for sure what we are talking about is already underlined and exists, but we put it together in a way for that, like that you said, the entry level, the person who's coming back to manifestation after believing they might have failed or that it was BS or whatever, because, right, sometimes when you have been taught that the universe is Uber Eats, it's not going to come, right? Because a lot of manifestation, I think, techniques that are sold on hashtag TikTok, is really about Uber Eats version of the universe. And that's not how it works. It's not at all how it works. It's a dialogue. It's a dynamic relationship that we have to the quantum field that rarely gives us back exactly what we put in our order for, right? It really is something much more exciting and much deeper, and tells more about us as human beings and our capacity to really create the reality that we want, but to become the people that can have the reality that we say we want, which is more important than anything.
Well, and what you're also pointing to, which is important, is instead of Uber Eats, which is like you put an order in and you get it right away, you're like,
yeah,
it's a practice. And your book is really chock full of so many practices, not only a very structured, like, do this for 7 weeks or do this for a week at a time, but all these beautiful micro practices, which I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because the difference between what we did with the art of manifesting is the fact that art is part of it, right? The idea that we take pen to paper, and it has to be your hand and it has to be paper, right? It's a human thing that we do. You can't do this with an algorithm. You can't do it with an AI. Okay, you've got to do it with you and a paper, where you recruit a different part of your brain, and you're now making something real because you see it. So you see a representation of it, very much like our ancient ancestors did. And our earliest pictures, which we have in the book, too, we have a lot of that in there. The first people that drew wavy lines and circles were 600,000 years ago in India, BC, not years ago, BC, right? So, where you start seeing these, rock carvings, and then these paintings inside of caves, etc., where we also realize that this was an affirmation in advance of, right? It's like the rain dance, which we call upon, we ask for it. We say we are ready for it. We are it. We experience it in advance. We are grateful in advance. So this isn't new, and we are not the first people to write about this at all. But if anything, I think we forgot that this is part of our ancient in technology, human technology, where art came before spoken language. We drew before we talked. Yeah. Right? And we could understand each other if we drew something.
And
right? That
you speak about this in your book a little bit, but the relationship between you and Anna, and how it was filled with synchronicity.
Oh my God.
Why you chose to blend art and manifestation, and if it specifically links back to it being one of our first ways of communicating,
right,
and future visioning.
Right.
If you could say more about that.
Yes, of course. Well, both, I'll talk about how I met Anna after, but I'll just say this, like the idea that art of any kind, right? So in drawing, this is about drawing. And then you don't need to be an artist to do this book, why we sometimes refer to it as, frequency art or doodles, because it's so simplistic. But I've doodled and drew since I was a little kid. And, when we were little and we drew our little, terrible drawings, but we were like, look what I made, because we were like into it. And we got into a state of flow where anything was possible when we're kids. That gets unlearned over time, right? Where it just gets replaced by different ideas about how the world works. 40 years ago, let's go there. 40 years ago, I got clean and sober. And that's really where this story should start. And after, many years of a lot of very difficult situations, et cetera, I became a drug addict and an alcoholic. And thank God I was young. And I got clean and sober when I was 27 in 1986, still am. One of the first things that I did, besides going to church basements to talk to other recovering addicts and alcoholics, was go to Unity Church. And the Unity Church introduced me to New Thought, the New Thought movement. And in the New Thought movement, I became like a humongous fan and avid reader of anything that Catherine Ponder, the minister, wrote. One of the first things that I had read about was something called treasure maps, which they talked about prayer in the form of a drawing or a collage. So art, and I was already a singer-songwriter. I had already been an artist, I've made a professional artist actually. But ultimately at the end of the day, this was art that was on purpose. This was intentional art that could call in its match in the outer world. So I was steeped in that. I've been steeped in this idea for 40 years. And got into the field of intuitive arts, et cetera. 36 years ago. So this has been my interest. So how does making art, or eventually sigil making, which is what I taught in most all my workshops. So all the things that I've done, my smaller workshops had some type of artistic component in it, because it anchored the belief, the concept, the desire in something formal that was iconic to you. Like the original thing was like sigil making, which comes from Mesopotamia and whatever, which was, really creating a symbol or an icon, which we already have in our society. We have the golden arches of McDonald's. We know what that is. We see an apple with the thing. We know what it means. So there are things that represent something to us, and we know exactly what that is. And so we expect to see it attached to it on the other side somewhere, right? So very much like that was already in my mind. I met Anna, but fascinatingly way, like a most amazing way, because I had broke my foot and I had just finished painting 44 of these big giant paintings, which became my latest Oracle card deck, Guides of the Hidden Realms, but I couldn't stand in front of a canvas with a broken foot. But I was always interested in line art. So one day I just got sitting in bed, going down the rabbit hole of YouTube. I started seeing things about the neuro arts. That came first. So I was really fascinated with, well, what is this? And the first person that coined it actually was an American scientist in 2012. He was the first person to coin it. I can't remember his name, but talking about how art impacts neurophysiology and how it changes us in a really big way and how important it is. And then I'd already seen like the art of, say, Greg A. Dunn, who painted neurons. He was a former neuroscientist and painted it. And also the original, godfather of neuroscience, who was also an artist, right? So I'd seen all these things and I'd already been drawing them. They looked like, that was kind of how I doodled anyway. So I thought, oh, that's so interesting. Anyway, then I landed in a class for 7-year-olds, which I took. And then I landed at Anna's doorstep. And Anna was teaching a number of things. She has a neuro art school. So she teaches a number of different styles, one of which was called Neurographica, but it wasn't about connecting to the universe. It was really a psychological process to do something very specific, like many of the aesthetic coaching processes. So I had already been playing around with this and my way about going, you can actually see a result if you start doing this like this, because I had already taught sigil making and I knew it could do it. And then when I showed Anna, I'd already shown everybody at Hay House, and they were like, this is amazing. And people were seeing results on the other end of it going like, how did you figure this out? I said, well, honestly, it's just it's a combination of so many things that have existed way before me. But this is just my recipe of this. You know what I mean? You can have lines, shapes, things like that, but you put a recipe together and it means something else. But Anna, so I took some of her classes and she would say in the camera, well, this drawing is about, my future self and who will come into my life, and expand my career and things like that. And I'm like going, I think it's me. So I wrote her. We had already become friendly, but I'm like, you did that video there. I think it's me. I think we're supposed to be doing something together. Hay House had offered me a book deal. I said, I think you should come and do this with me. Then we found out we were both Reiki masters because I was secretly putting Reiki on the paper. Like I was doing this whole thing. Mm-hmm. That I wasn't teaching other people, and she was too. And I'm like, we need to teach people how to do this. And then literally, she had been wanting this, and I love partners, and I wanted a really smart partner. And she was so smart and so talented. And she was in the same thing as me and like totally interested in all the same things. And she had already had all my Oracle cards. So when I told her what my name was, this is before we made friends, she was like, oh, what did you say your name was? And I'm like, yeah, Colette Baron-Reid. I just watched your video and I think I'm the person and I think we're supposed to make friends. She's like, oh my God, look, I have all your cards. So we really believe we didn't have a choice. We were put together because the way this book was written, and then we had the most amazing collaborative editor with us too, on board with us. It just literally channeled through us. Like anytime we had a question about something, we would find it in this weird, obscure scientific journal or something else. Like, we need to back this up. It can't be anecdotal. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah. It just flowed.
Yeah. And we have great respect for the other one. And she's brilliant. And we're going to be training teachers to teach people how to do this too. So we're totally in sync and I love it. And Hay House loves it. And it's the most fun thing I've ever done because it's the first time it's blended.
Yeah.
And it's for everybody. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. This is for everybody. Anybody can do it. You don't have to really even believe anything to do it. You just have to be curious enough to notice. the synchronicities that happen when you start this process. Something happens. And I think we have lost our agency. And I think the reason why this book now, like, why did it happen so fast? How did we do this? Like, what the heck? Like, we just feel like we like being, okay, you two go here, they'll go there. But it's because people are losing hope. They're seeing the outer world as the only world that tells them how they should feel or be, instead of having the agency to make their own choices from an internal guidance system, right? And this is what this restores. It really does. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, I didn't notice that. Look at that. And then you start getting these little signals in the outer that you couldn't possibly have made up, that are there, that are just going tap like a little birdie at the window. Hello, I'm listening to you. So it may not be the big 40-minute delivery, like you started by saying, but boy, oh boy, you get the next right action showed you, do this next. Come here now. Here's where we're going.
Yeah.
Not this, but that. Yeah. And you participate again.
Well, I'd like to even rewind to super
Sure.
thick language, because many people listening might know exactly what this means and other people don't. But one of the
Sure.
things this book offers is how to live in alignment with the consciousness of the universe. And so what
Right.
even being in alignment mean?
Yeah. I recognize that. I try not to use those kind of overused words, but you're right. Alignment. So what is alignment? When you know you're in sync. Like, alignment means I know I'm in a coherence or a sense of harmony. I know I'm in the right place. Like, there's just a knowing. It's intuitive. It's physical because you feel it in your body. And your track that sometimes you may not even be able to language what that is, but you feel it in your body. I'm on track right now. I know. And you can relax into it. Alignment is a relaxation, right? It's not like I am fixed to this, because there's no such thing as fixed anything. It's a continuous evolution. If your train goes off the tracks when you compare yourself to others, when you want what other people have, when you follow trends only, when you make your decisions based on what you think you're going to get, like, those are misalignments, right? Alignment is when you're like, I'm supposed to do this here. I feel it. I know it. I've had a little mini synchronicity over there, or a meaningful coincidence. If people don't know what a synchronicity is, right? Little meaningful coincidence. So we keep going there and we keep taking that action. Just like Joseph Campbell says, we take one step towards the gods, they will take 10 towards us. It's that. And it's not perfect. Alignment is not something that I have never met anybody perfectly aligned 24/7 all the time. You're going to lose your temper, right? You're going to miss the green light. You'll be stuck at the airport. All of those human things are going to happen. They're going to challenge you. So it's not perfection, but the progress is extraordinary. When you know you're going to go, and fall asleep at the wheel once in a while and get afraid or do whatever, be pissed off at somebody. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you just kind of slide right back in again. And that's what we're talking about here.
And just a little side note. So I'm a somatic therapist, and in terms of feeling alignment, so I work a lot with people's structure, and when their head's out of alignment or when their pelvis is out of alignment, the brilliance of being out of alignment in terms of trauma is that you feel less inside yourself, right? It can help numb you out. So it can be useful if feeling has been really hard or scary. But when I'm working with someone, I've had this experience so many times, and they click into alignment, there'll be like a rush of
energy
in my body. And they're also like, whoa, and they can feel themselves. When we're literally speaking about physical alignment inside your form, right? When you get aligned in that way, it speaks to why it's hard for some people. They live physically out of alignment for a reason. And it takes a lot of courage to come back into themselves, to be in their physical body, to embody alignment, and then to get beyond their own physical body and become aligned with the universe, right? Or whatever it is, put it out there, right? It's like, be visible. It's a lot.
You made a very good point. And I'm really happy you made that point, because this is for everyone. And it is about getting back into alignment, because I think we've gotten out of alignment mentally, spiritually, emotionally, right? And re-traumatize is very common, right? More and more of us are keeping on. Like, you cannot be in a heightened state of stress response for so long, the way we did all throughout the pandemic. And then now as well, we're getting manipulated by all this information too. So there's a reason why somebody out there doesn't want us to be stable or aligned, but you can do it. But you have to acknowledge, hey, I'm not feeling like I'm in sync. And it may be that you start this and then have the courage to go see someone like you, because it is scary. I've held that personally in my physicality for so many years, where I've held a protection thing. I had a bad, violent experience in my late teens, right? And a few more in my early 20s that created this sense of that I need to protect myself somehow, right? So going to a somatic, I see an osteopath that's amazing. It's like, well, when you clock on, it's like, woo, because every once in a while, that's my natural, I'll go to that. So just knowing that it's not going to be perfect, but we have tools, we have people like you, or, if you can't find and you can't go to a somatic healer, or I don't know, a therapist like you may, you could pick up a pencil and a pen and a piece of paper and start somewhere to say, I recognize I'm, and not to dwell on it is the other thing. Like, the more we analyze misalignment, the more we're in it, I think, too. It's like, oh, this happened and that happened and this, we had a big story. And then by the end of it, oh, I don't have time. Okay, I have to go now. Right? It's like, let's just know it's there, acknowledge it, be really respectful that exists, and then slowly take these little steps, that's why our thing is 7 weeks long. Right. And we have these gratitude. It's all based in gratitude. And if you bump up against yourself or something that you're not ready to look at or whatever, you just go back to gratitude. You just go back to awe. You go back to reverence, awe, gratitude, and surrender that. And you're going to have an opportunity as a new invitation to see things differently. And it's organic. And I have to tell you something. Okay, but speaking of organic, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my friend Kristen gave away a whole bunch of books in Los Angeles, and she did it at a birthday party, and the paper that they got was botanical paper. I'd never heard of that before. So she called me on the weekend saying, "Oh my God, all these parties are happening. These women are having their own parties, and they're having, brunches and getting your book and working with this particular paper." So it really hit me. The botanical paper is a paper that is made with the seeds of wildflowers, right? And you can plant that paper. So you can plant your intentions, right? You can actually plant this thing. And it's organic matter, right? And Uber Eats isn't organic. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like instant. It's like, give it to me now. There's no integration. There's no sense of wonder and awe as it unfolds, right? And that's what I want everybody to know. Yes, I mean, I've had things happen so fast, it's insane. Like, this process. But the bigger value of the becoming is taking time, and it takes time for all of us. And we need to allow the organic quality of evolution to happen. But the only way we can do that is to recognize that the source or the quantum field of the universe is the source of our supply.
Yeah. Well,
and we can let go.
What it reminds me of is gardening. So I'm a big gardener, and I also from year to year don't know what bulbs are going to survive. Like, sometimes I leave things in and sometimes I pull them out, tulips and dahlias and all sorts of things. And so there's that waiting period. And so what it reminds me of is, you plant these seeds and then you have to let go and you surrender, right? You just like, okay, so what's going to happen? And you wait for what will materialize. And it asks a certain amount of trust, right? Hopefully the gophers don't eat my bulbs this year, but that's one of the ingredients inside your recipe.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Trust.
Gratitude, there's trust, there's surrender, there's doing the actions, there's taking the action to plant the seed or draw the drawing,
yes,
engage in the practice on a daily basis.
Yeah. Like, I doodle, or I do every day, every night before bed, I'm doing something on a drawing. And I wake up, and I do the same thing. I have a cup of coffee, and before anything else, I just am stupefied in gratitude is what I do. And I draw. And I just go round and round, and I don't particularly draw anything specific. I don't set out to draw anything specific. I start with the circle and I just say thank you. And I say thank you. And I conjure up a very specific thank you, though. So I like to, and I tell everybody too in our courses, etc., is to find that sense memory that you have already. Now, I don't know if you've had kids, but I know you have a dog. I know you have this very special Toshi, right? So the first time you set eyes on that little being, your heart exploded and you were grateful, right? Like, oh my God, are you kidding me now, right? That is the feeling. And when but if a person has had a baby, they know what that feeling is like when they look at that baby, right? You are flooded with a sense of wonder and amazement and gratitude and wow, right? I have been like that with every single one of my dogs, particularly this one who's really failing right now, my dog Bazoo. But my other dog, Sebastian, they were both interesting little black dogs. But yeah, that feeling state of wow, oh my God. I remember crying when I first set eyes on her. I was just like sobbing. And she was the cutest little thing. But I totally just knew, wow. And so when I can't think of anything to be grateful, for example, you might wake up, and your little goblin woke up at the end of the bed before you did and going like, I'm like jealousy or whatever. Just like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm going to go back to that memory. And I'm just going to do that over and over. And I don't think about her when I do it. I think about the awe, the gratitude, right?
It's so I have to say, it's so funny. We're talking a lot about synchronicity, and there's so many things that you've spoken to that are synchronistic for me. And I'll start with the dog thing. So when I first discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, I was allergic to dogs since childhood. But my neighbor, my landlord who lived in the front, had this dog, and it would greet me with this little funny smile, like it would like this thing every time I came in. And I started to associate that dog with being welcome. And before I'd gotten that, I manifested that place to live in this remarkable way. And I had been praying and visualizing to unmemorize the feelings of terror, which was my childhood, and with feeling welcome and peace and, and all this. So anyway, so then I would never have included a dog because it was outside of my thought of like, I'm allergic to dogs. I fell in love with this dog. And so when I went to my first retreat with him, it's just like a thing. And when we had to access gratitude, it used to be my somatics teacher that I would think of because I feel so much gratitude for how much that transformed my life. But then it became this dog. And so I picture this dog. And then it became, Toshi's name is Santosha, which means contentment in Sanskrit. And that name came to me before she did. And, that's a whole other story. But basically, absolutely, that dog, instant heart opening,
right?
Coherence.
Whoa, right?
Immediate way to connect to gratitude for me.
Right.
I also just have to say all the collaging. So it's an interesting thing. I really believe that art was a primary resource for any kind of nervous system regulation. When I was a teenager, I would collage anything and everything. I would sculpt and I would paint. And so I just want to put a plug out there for all this incredible wisdom for kids doodling in class, but also making art and really valuing that as a way to regulate our nervous system and to calm ourselves when we don't have other resources.
Yeah, and it works. I've always been very anxious when I was a kid. Well, I had all these extra information coming at me also at the same time. But regardless of that, I had a lot of mental health challenges and doodling, drawing, and for me too, music became a really big one. I know that this works. Like this works to calm me down. This works to get me back in a track of thought. Also, I'm very much about more God, less me. You know what I mean? And again, keep an open mind to use that. That's a very comfortable term for me. For me, God is not a white guy in the sky, nor does it have anything to do with religion. Yeah. It's really this consciousness of the greatest intelligence. And that's what I see it as, source with a big capital S, just easier to say God. So it's like more that, less me. And when I say less me, I have less fear, less grasping, less attachment, less, the sublimation of the ego that edges God out, ease, right? Like that little welcoming little dog for you. Now you're in love with this dog, right? And it's this most amazing experience. It's like, we can't make this up either. Like, right? Joe and I we've met many years prior to that, and he became a good friend. And I've been to a lot of his events, which are great. He used to do these events, I think called Three Amigos, with him and Greg Braden and Dr. Bruce Lipton. So it was Bruce in his book, The Biology of Belief, where he talked about the epigenetics, where the environment, right? And so if you have the environment of the mind, right, that is peaceful, easeful, joyful, like, his whole honeymoon thing he talks about, it's so true. It turns on certain genetic responses and certain ways in which we process dopamine and serotonin, all these feel-good chemicals that go through you when you remember that gratitude is the easiest, that, and love, of course, which is, even higher than that. And then, David Hawkins, who taught that well before that as well, too. It's so important. And then having that, I remember being in one of Joe's events because he had big groups and I loved it. And that's what I loved most about it, is that you're in the room with all these people focusing on this, because where two or more are gathered, there I am. There I am. Right? We had 40,000 people last year at my Vision Board Challenge, where I started teaching them, started introducing the concept of the zone of synchronicity, which is really about trusting. Like, you talked about having a level of trust that when the bulb is there and the gopher won't eat it, right? Right. Same sort of thing is like, okay, so we typically, when we say this or something better now manifests for me in divine appropriate timing, which typically is what we learn how to do on the old school vision boards. But I'm like, when have I ever got it the way exactly as I said? Every single thing that have manifested from the vision boards that I put out there all came to me through outrageous synchronicities.
Yeah.
Right? It never came to me because I took an action and got the exact response. That's never how it went. Right? So I thought, well, how come we don't put that on the board? So I started drawing a zone of synchronicity outside of it and saying, like, guys, we need to focus on this and leave these things and let spirit say, so let's focus our energy on the frequency of that zone where we're just surprised and excited and happy because it's going to be better than what we come up with.
I wasn't raised with any kind of religion, but I've always been interested in ritual and sacredness. Even as a little child, my mom's pretty irreverent, and she would be like, roll her eyes. The word God was something I didn't get comfortable with until I started going to a non-denominational church in my late 20s. And I was drawn in by the choir. I thought they were amazing.
Yeah, same. Music. It was music. They played guitar.
Yeah.
And this church.
It really helped me. It was a place that was very queer, very Black, very like, Alice Walker went there. There are rabbis that went there. Like, it just felt very inclusive, and that felt really good to me and important to me. And so, and I went to Al-Anon as a kid, right? Alateen as a teenager. But I felt very uncomfortable with the God talk. So I'm really interested. Well, and I'll say one other thing, which is what I find in working with clients, and I specialize in working with trauma, is that when people have some connection to source or spirit, whatever you want to call it, healing happens more easily for them. Yeah. Right? So when there's a break in trust with God or source, it's such an essential way that we feel held in the world, especially if we don't feel that with our own family members. And so what you say to people who need to reconnect or have more peace or ease with the concept of a higher power so that they can even step into this work, because so much of it, and I really see things happen so quickly when you can.
All right. So this is my favorite thing to talk about. Good. So I obviously have a background in 12 steps. So I got involved when I got clean and sober. I went to a treatment center for women. Mm-hmm. And I remember they had two options. One is an inpatient, one is an outpatient. And when I explained to them what I thought was wrong with me, they signed me an inpatient. And I told them AA doesn't work. I'm not doing that. There's no way I'm doing that. And it was all 12 step, everything that was based on 12 steps. And because I'd had a really very messed up relationship with religion. I went to a private girls' school, which was Anglican, which was okay. And then we went to a private Catholic school for 2 years that made me very, when I was yanked out of the prayer line because I was not a Catholic, the nun grabbed me. I wasn't allowed to lead, even though I was the vice president of the class. So I had all this like freaked out stuff about God being like exclusive to different things, right? Different types. So I was, and I thought the God of my understanding was following me around with a fly swatter. So I had to come up with a brand new idea of what God is. I had to give it a new job description. And one of the greatest things in that treatment center was they're saying your higher power can be anything. If you want it to be the universe, that's fine. If you want it to be nature, life, so I got stuck looking at a tree one day and I was like, who made that? I couldn't get my boot out of the snow. I was wearing stiletto heels. Okay. Like you would not believe what I used to look like. Into the treatment center. I looked like, like seriously, studded brassieres, like with the big, big metal band hair. Yeah. Okay. And I just had this spiritual awakening going like, wow, life is everywhere. And God doesn't make junk, and whatever God is, I've got a brand new God. Like, and I realized that this was this intelligence that didn't have to have anything to do with those things. So I had to come up with my own at first. And then so to recognize that you're not alone is the most important piece. But I can't tell anybody how exactly to do it, except maybe to sit down with a rose and look at it and say, well, who made this? And then when you've come up with a good answer, that's your higher power, right? Because you didn't. You did not make that. Right? Something bigger than you that makes this world grow and flourish and is alive and living and energy and whatever you want to call it. And eventually it'll evolve. I think because my higher power has evolved over time.
Yeah.
I liked goddess for a while. I wanted the whole feminine thing. And then I was like, oh, who cares? And then it was like, I just tried different things. And like, I think that your relationship to a higher power is allowed to evolve as you evolve. But one thing I will say this, I have an unwavering faith and trust. Even though I don't always like what I get, I want something else or more, or something else has been my, my character flaw to work with. But I always know that it's what is right for me will not go past me. I believe that 1,000%. If I ask to be of service and to be used, I will be. And it will be for good.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
One of my baby steps in making peace with the word God that I really appreciated, there was an 80-something-year-old Baptist, previous, a woman from the South living in Oakland who was the preacher at this church I went to. And she would say, if you don't like the word God, just put an extra O in it. And it's like, what's the good? What's the,
right. What's the good?
And then the good inside you. And yeah, that quiet, intuitive voice.
The good, orderly direction. Good, orderly direction, right? Or direction.
Yeah. So it's a really tricky one because so many people have been so abused, or there's so much shame. I mean, even religious abuse can live in the body, like sexual abuse. And so helping people unwind that, but then how to, have a new relationship. It's like if someone's been burned by a man, then they're like, I hate all men. And how to believe that there is still good out there. Right. And
we're all born good. I think that's the other thing. Like, I believe we're born innocent. We're born good. I think, the whole misuse of the word sin, it actually means to miss the mark. Right. So I believe that we are born whole. We are born innocent. We are born pure, and we are born good. And we unlearn that is true. Right. I believe that there is good in every single human being. And that at our essential core, we are first spiritual before we are physical, material, personality beings, right? We are first that. So it is our core. It's where we come from. So I don't, I always get a kick out of atheists because they definitely believe in something. And whatever you really genuinely believe in becomes your higher power. The thing that you pay most attention to becomes your higher power too. So that's another thing. Like, am I paying attention to my resentments? Because then that's my higher power. So what is good? Well, we recognize good. We know what good is. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Do no harm. That's good,
Mm-hmm.
right? Contribute, care, have
Mhm.
compassion, show kindness,
Yeah.
be loving, right?
What you're speaking to is also just a universal principle that is so important, whether it's in martial arts, somatics, manifesting, but that energy follows intention and attention.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I first learned that through one of my primary somatic teachers was also a martial arts master. Just this idea that, like, wow, you can actually move a really big man
Right?
with your focus and your
Your
intention. You
focus.
have a clear boundary and, like consolidate your energy if you're
Yep.
congruent with your
Mhm.
words and your actions.
And that's the thing,
Mm.
what you just said, the congruency.
Mhm.
So that was the other desire that we had for the book, was to really show people in a very gentle way. Because you sort of organically get that congruency all of a sudden. It's like, oh, I'm feeling like this. My action wants to go here. My behavior is going to match that. So, like, the congruency starts to become more focused, and then you're going to follow that. And then the reticular activating system of your brain is going to take your eyeballs and notice out there, where is the match to this? So
Mhm.
there's this, again, this congruency, like you said. And then eventually, at some point, we get aware enough to be really conscious of this, and we do it deliberately with focused attention and intention, right? So like that, it's kind of like, the martial arts of manifesting. But
Mhm.
you have to do inner work. You don't just go to the dojo and all of a sudden can do all this. It takes training.
Right, right, right. So some of my training was working with horses. And that to me was some of the most miraculous, that just showed me what my energy did in an undeniable way. And being in a group of people of like 12 people, and each person has the exact same instruction to work with the horse in the exact same way, and how different the same horse would respond based on each of our energy. Right. And so just that's like giving you that immediate feedback that you cannot argue
Yeah.
with versus being like, oh,
Yeah.
personality and I'm a personality and you don't like me. So you're thinking I'm a this kind of leader or that kind of leader.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right. It's so interesting. And so that's actually a being, right? So, but the universe responds similarly to us, right? And we know we may not get a horse in front of us to like do something with, but we will see events play out in front of us that matches, right? That energy or that frequency that we broadcast externally. And like you said, when we first started our conversation about chemicalization, which for the listener who doesn't know what this is, it's kind of when the shit hits the fan before you get what you want, because you have to actually clean house. Because it's like, oh, you're not the person that could become the thing. Like you have to move a few things around in order to get where you want to go, or what you said you wanted to, what you intended to become. So things get taken away or things, whatever. But that can be a really great sign, because it's like, oh, I have work to do. Perfect. Because it's really good. Instead of, it's not no, it's not, it may be not now because we have to do this first. So we always have a reflective answer from the conscious universe. We just don't know how to recognize it. And so that's how we're really hoping that doing these drawings and then becoming curious. You know who else did this? Was Pam Grout in her book E Squared. So she did a fantastic job, with doing that. I think she had one exercise with the dude abides, because she called her higher power the dude.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it was one where you looked for a car, a very specific obscure car, and then all of a sudden you'd see one that was so weird. And I remember thinking of an orange, what were the chances? It was an orange, it was a British car. What did I think of? It was the Panther car. Crap. What was that?
a Jaguar? No, a Panther.
Yes, thank you. A Jaguar. Can you believe it? There's like, what? That's a 67-year-old brain, guys. Okay. So yeah, and I saw an orange Jaguar. The next day, when I thought, I'm not going to see this, in a parking lot where all these people came with their cars, like they have that we have a Greek fabulous burger place here, but it also is a place for meetups for people that bring their cars. And there it was, a bright orange Jaguar car. What are the chances? Right? So it's like things like that where you're like, okay, I'm going to focus on this, and then I'm just going to let it go.
Along the lines of cars, one of the things that really stayed with me, I love So even though I'm a somatic therapist and I do body work and I do martial arts-based practices and I work on and I do energy medicine, I do all these other things like that. I really love listening to language and wordplay. So very kind of Lacanian, also Jungian. So I had a client.
I wish you lived next door to me. I would hang out with you every day.
Oh, you have to come and visit my garden and see if the gophers ate my bulb.
You think and talk about all the stuff that I'm interested in.
Well, we'll have to keep this conversation going. A client was dealing with a situation where they'd found something out in their partnership and they lived like however many hours away, and they're like, my relationship is exploding. And then she proceeded to tell me about how her car engine had exploded on the way to drive and see him. And she hadn't like seen the connection between the language.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this is such a, somebody could say it's a synchronicity, but it's this piece of our inner world being reflected in our outer world.
Yeah.
I always notice when stuff happens with my car, like if I get a flat tire or like my engine. I mean, yeah, that's a whole other conversation about cars, but it always reflects. It's like if I'm literally feeling energetically out of gas,
Car will run out of gas.
or like my brand new car engine dies on the freeway. It's like, what's happening there? Right.
You just brought up something I think is hysterical. So I had gone to Europe with my husband for 3 months and I came home early because I missed my dogs. I'd never gone away without my dogs, never again either, ever. Anyway, so I came home. So the car, I knew that I was squirrely in the head. Okay. I was like very squirrely in the head. And I'm like, I need to go back to my original spiritual practice that I started with 40 years ago. Like I decided I was going to just go back to the basics that I know worked for me way back when. And I made the commitment to do so. But I was so squirrely in the head. I took the car out and the car, I couldn't get it to move. Like the brakes were all screwed up. Anyway, it turns out that little squirrels go into the car and ate the brakes. But like, how profoundly perfect was that? And the fact that it was jerky, because that's exactly how I was. And it only hit me now when you just said that about thinking about your car. I'm like going, oh my God, that was my fault because I totally was. Yeah. And they were like chewing on things.
It's like, what are you chewing on?
What are you chewing on?
What's making you nuts?
What's making you nuts? Exactly. Oh my God. Like, it's fascinating when you think about it. A lot of people don't notice, which I'm hoping people will start noticing exactly what you said. Mm-hmm. The relationship between what we say, which tends to be a reflection of what we think about a lot, right?
Yeah.
It'll come out of our mouth. What we rehearse. Because if we're rehearsing something over and over again, it will show up somehow. And we have to have a good laugh. I chuckle. Mm-hmm. But you know what it does for me? I may not get exactly what I want, but I get enough of a nudge to keep going and to trust that there is something I don't understand in this universe. Like, I know by the science of it, the quantum field responds to us in kind.
Yeah.
I don't really understand it, and that's okay. I don't need to, because I have absolute faith that this is going to happen. And I'll also be steered in the correct direction, because if something's not for me, it will definitely be taken for me, and I know it. So I even ask for that. This is not for me. Please take it away. I do not want to chase it. I do not want to waste any energy. I don't want to put any attention on something that's not for me. Make it very freaking clear.
Yeah.
And it is always taken away from me. Like, it's just like, nope, that's not for you. Bye. And it's not that we get what we want. We get what we are. Mm-hmm. Right? So I am a person of faith, right? And I'm not saying faith as in, like, I believe in, faith that this works. Faith that if I am conscious and aware and trying to be in alignment with good, right, or God, right, that I will see something back to me to remind me that I'm not alone. And if that's all I get, these little tiny little, it's like God is like the little birdie in the window going tap, right? That's okay, because that's enough to keep me going and trusting that the next right action will be revealed.
There's a reframe in your book that I think is important, which is not that everything happens for a reason, but everything happens so we can discover meaning.
Yeah.
Right. And I hold things that way. And it's hard when I look at certain things. I get really pulled into a hole. And when I look at my own personal life, that I find that works for me.
It had to work for me because, when I learned in my 20s about my mother's history, my grandfather was killed in a concentration camp in Germany. And he was French. He was picked up by the SS at her door. He was coming to get her because her mom had been killed by a bomb. And he was Jewish, but her mother was Christian. But anyway, you can't even have a drop of blood, otherwise you would have been taken away with, in the kinder train or whatever it was. Anyhow, so you can't say that my grandfather was killed in the Holocaust for a reason. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't find reason in that. And so I learned a lot about Viktor Frankl, and he talked about man's search for meaning. And that is really what we need to be doing, is not looking for what's the reason or the analysis of it. Like, this happened because that happened. Well, it should have happened that way. It was happened because it's supposed to happen. No, we have to find meaning in that so that A, we don't repeat it, or B, what could we learn from this, and how can we make this meaningful so that it didn't go to waste either, right? So nothing is ever wasted in this world. Our pain, our suffering, none of that. It can't go to waste. We have to find some kind of meaning. And to say that everything happens for a reason for me is very trite and not accurate.
I appreciated that.
Mm-hmm.
We could probably talk all day, which I would
Okay.
And I really would love, because I just want to name a couple of the things, and then I would love for us to go into a little bit of an exercise.
Right.
And so, but some of the things, like even the journal prompts, that were so many great journal prompts, I thought, oh, someone could draw these instead of write them if they really,
Yep.
right? But
You want to pick one?
limiting belief meditations at bed, shaking, lightening your load, decluttering, and regifting the items. There was so much in your book. And so I want people to know that, yes, there's this whole process of drawing, but there's so much around it to support the process.
Sure. I think there's a really great little meditation that I'd love to offer everybody that is very quick and is quite easy. I'm not even sure if I put it in the book, but I'm pretty sure I did. We call it Get on Your Bird. And so whenever you are feeling like, oh, because you don't want to go to the drawing feeling all squirrely, especially if your head is like all over the place. And especially if you are particularly fearful or triggered right now. So what I'm going to do this with you, and everybody can join us. Okay. So I'd like you to just name 3 adjectives, because we tend to go to the same emotional place. The same emotional place feels very similar in the body. So I'm going to ask you for 3 adjectives. When you are really stressed out or anxious and overwhelmed, what 3 adjectives would you use to describe that?
I would say, so anxious.
Yep.
Tight.
Okay.
And breathless.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. So close your eyes. And everybody else, come up with your own 3 adjectives that represent the way you feel, with how you would describe your feeling state when you're anxious, stressed out, or overwhelmed. So anxious, tight, and breathless. If those 3 things were just the description of a place you temporarily inhabited, what would that place be?
A place I temporarily inhabited, a small cave filling with water.
Oh, small cave filling with water. Okay.
Like the
yeah,
lake
I get it.
almost over my nose.
Oh, so very dangerous. Yeah, almost over your nose, right? So yeah, I can pretty much guess your answer if I say, if I could show you a way out of here, would you take it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd like you to imagine that a creature with wings, a bird, any kind of winged creature, comes in to take you away. And your job is to get on its back. And even if it has to take you through the cave walls, it doesn't matter. It's magic. It's going to take you high, high in the sky until all you see is blue. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
So you are on the back of this being, and you are high in the sky until all you see is blue. And I'm going to invite everybody to just kind of take a peek over the wing and notice how, since you're, thousands of feet up in the air and very safe, how big or small is the original place?
Very tiny. I can't even see it.
Right. So does it impact you at the same way at all where you are now?
No.
You're having a different experience, yeah? Can you describe the difference on your body now compared to what it felt like when you were in the cave?
There's a sense of air and spaciousness all around my limbs. A little bit of fear because I'm like, ooh, it's excitement though. It's that edge,
Yeah.
anxiety and excitement and
Beautiful.
giddiness.
I love that. Okay. Well, you definitely didn't feel that way in the cave, right? Okay. So I'm going to ask your beautiful creature to bring you gently back to the chair that you're sitting on now until you can open your eyes. You're just going to plop you in the chair. It's a difference, right? I mean, but notice what we didn't do. We did not change anything about the first place.
Right.
We didn't analyze it. We didn't take it apart. We didn't make it bad. We didn't even try to transform it, did we? We moved.
Mhm.
We just moved. And so that little tiny exercise there, anybody can do that. And we typically do it for much longer, et cetera. It's one of my favorite exercises, but you can do it in less than 3 minutes and just get out and move without even analyze. Just name it. It's allowed to exist in its integrity, but there's another place to go. And you know why the mind doesn't fight it and doesn't say no? Is because our oldest mind recognizes that flying is the only thing that human beings can't do organically. We can mimic any animal. We can climb a tree. We can burrow under the ground. We can swim. We just can't fly. So our earliest vision is that they were the intermediaries between us and magic.
Yeah. Just a plug for, waking dreams. I'm a dream flyer and I love, that's just like something I've always loved.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's very Jungian active imagination that we just did.
Love it. Thank you so much. How can people find you?
Just go to my website, ColetteBaron-Reid.com. I'm sure you're going to put it in your show notes. And also, if you are interested in the book, The Art of Manifesting, there's a free workshop you can download off my website. It's ColetteBaron-Reid.com/book. Yeah. So we're giving away all this stuff, and I do weekly drawings with my wonderful friend, Anna Denning. She does them on her website at her school. So we're constantly inviting people in and just come do it with us. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, I hope you found that as interesting as I did. And I do wish you were part of the dialogue I had with her once I stopped recording. Unfortunately, that's not the case. But if you are interested around having a more sensual relationship to life, your waking dream, you can work with me individually. You can do my online course, or you can join a group that I'm going to be offering starting in January, an in-person opportunity. And if you just want to start to check out more about somatics and embodiment and looking at how our belief systems inform how we move through the world and our relationships, you can check out my workbook at charnacassell.com. You can read more about my work at passionatelife.org. And if you'd like to stay connected, you can join my newsletter or follow me at LaidOPEN Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. That's LaidOPEN Podcast. And thank you so much. We all have different capacities, but I believe in our capacity to grow and change together.